Now here is a new topic, that is standard input and output functions. So all the input and output functions are defined in header file. So that header file is standard input output header file stdio.h. So in this stdio.h we have standard input, standard output and standard error. That is stdin.h, stdout.h and stderr.h. So these all are defined in the header file, that is stdio.h. Now C support standard input output functions which are defined in the stdio.h. So in C we have the printf, scanf, puts, getters and all the different types of input output functions. So all these input output functions are defined in the stdio.h header file. Now let's discuss one by one. First we shall see the standard output functions. So output functions, these are which we want to print on the output screen. So these functions are used to write different types of data onto the standard output devices. So output devices like monitor. So the functions, this printf, putchar, fprintf, puts. So these functions are used to write the different types of data onto the standard output device. So the best device is monitor. So C provides the following standard output functions defined in stdio.h header file. So some functions like printf, putchar, puts, fprintf. So these are the standard output functions. These all are defined in the stdio.h header file. Now first let's discuss the printf. So it is a standard output functions to write different types of data onto the output screen. So which the sentences or the statements which we want to print or we want to see on the output screen, then we use the printf. So this is the output function, and whatever the data we write in this or the string or anything, that will be printed on the output screen. So for that purpose we use the printf. So it always returns an integer value. So the syntax is the printf and open brace, and within the double quotes we write some statement. For example, control string and ended with the semicolon. So when we are writing a statement in a program, then it prints control string because we want to display the control string on the output screen. Or the second syntax is printf and the control string or format specification. We can use the control string, like we can use string is a collection of characters, so we can mention any string, or we can also use the format specification. We have the format specifications for integer like percentile d, for float like percentile f, for character percentile c, and etc. So when we are using that format specification, we have to end with a semicolon. Then after we have to write the variable name. So that variable name and the format specification. So this is the second syntax. We can write the control string, or we along with the control string we can also write the format specification. So when you are writing the format specification, compulsorily you need to write the variable name and ended with the semicolon. So these are the two syntaxes for the printf. Let's see a small program here. So write a C program to print a given character. For example, the given character is A. We have to print it onto the output screen. So first we have to include the header file #include stdio.h. So in this only the printf, scanf and all the input output functions are there. So we have to print out on the output screen. So compulsorily we have to use the printf function. So for that we have to include the stdio.h header file. Now the next header file is #include conio.h. So this is not mandatory, but the use of using this is we can access the function clr.scr, that is a clear screen. So user not only write the one program in one compiler, so he or she writes the many programs in a single compiler. So the previous program output may be displayed on the console or the output screen. So for that, to clear the previous output, we use the clear screen function. But this clear screen function is defined in the conio.h. So for that, we are including the header file, that is conio.h. So hash include conio.h. Now header files include we have included. Now the int main starts. Printf always returns an integer value. So compulsorily we have to use the int as a data type and int main. We cannot use the void because printf always returns the integer value. Now the block of code starts. So after the main function, so every program execution always starts with the main function. Now the block of code starts. So within the curly brace only we write the statements, block of code. So I have to print the a character onto the output screen. So first character yes. So a is a character. It's not an integer or it's not a float or it's not a double or it's not anything. It's a character. So I am declaring one variable as s. So character s. So this is a declaration of the character. Declaration of a variable. Now the clear screen. So the previous output will be cleared. Now s is equals to, within the single quotes I am writing a because I want to print it on the output screen, the letter a. So this is a declaration, this is a initialization. So character s and s is equals to, within the single quote I want to print a. So this a is assigned to the variable s. Now the printf. Now this is a printf statement. Given character is, this is a control string, and we can also use the format specification. So given character is %c. So I am using the %c because the data type I am using is character. I want to print a character outside, and s is a variable name which is defined with the data type char. So that's why I have to use the format specification as %c and the variable name. So I defined this character in the variable name yes. So comma s and ended with a semicolon. Now get ch, then after return 0. Integer always returns a value. Then close the curly brace. Now to the output screen. In the output, it prints given character is a. So this whole statement as it prints. So given character is, and in the place of %c we get the a because this %c is specified to the variable s, and in variable s the a value is stored. So that's why it prints the a. So this is the final output of this program. Now this is about the printf. Now next one we have the putchar. So it is a standard output function to write one character at a time. For example, if I want to write only one character at a time, then I can use the putchar. So syntax is putchar, and within the brace single quote and the character. Whereas in printf we can write collection of characters, we can write string, or also we can write the format space, we can also use the format specifications, and we are using the double quotes. But in the putchar we have to use single quote, and at a time only one character is allowed and ended with a semicolon. And the second one is putchar within a single quote variable name. So this is without declaring any variable. This is after declaring a variable and after assigning it, then we can use this syntax. So there are two ways for the putchar. So for the syntax one, the example is just we have to include all the header files, int main function, and same as this I am writing the just only the block of code here. So putchar, and within the open brace, within the single quote I want to print a ended with a semicolon. So output a will be printed. This is the first way of declaring it. Now the second way, the second syntax is, first we have to declare one variable, then s is equals to this a and putchar of s. So here single quotes are not needed in this. Just directly we can write the variable here ended with a semicolon. Now when we are just directly declaring the variable, so in s what is stored? In s the letter a is stored. So that's why the output we get as a. Now this is about the putchar. Now let's see the program here. Write a C program to print a given character using putchar. So using putchar we have to print a given character. For example, the given character I want to print is A. Now hash include stdio.h header file, hash include conio.h, int main, and the next open brace. Now character s I am declaring and clear screen. Then s is equals to A. So to the variable s I am assigning one character, that is A, ended with a semicolon. Now putchar yes. So this variable yes I want to print, but in s the A is stored, ended with semicolon, and get ch return 0. So to the output A will be printed. So this is about the, so instead of all the characters and s is equals to A initializing it, and instead of this putchar, instead of these three statements, just in single line we can write as putchar open brace single quote and the character which I want to print it onto the output screen. So directly we can write like this. So this is it. For this we have to declare, we have to initialize, then we have to use a putchar function. So by this also we get the same output as A. So these are two ways of printing the putchar characters. Now this is about the standard output functions. fprintf and the puts we will discuss in the upcoming classes. Now the standard input functions. So input functions, these functions are used to get or read of different types of data from standard input devices. So input devices we use as keyboard. So the user has to give the inputs through the keyboard, and that will be read by the different types of data. This is about the standard input functions. Let's discuss the scanf and some other standard input functions. So C supports the following standard input functions like scanf, getchar, gettys, fscanf. So these are the four functions. The first one is scanf. In this scanf, it is a standard input function to read different types of data from standard input devices, and it always returns an integer value. So we use printf to get to the output screen. Scanf we use to read the different types of data from the devices, from the input devices, like from the keyboard. So for that the syntax is scanf and within the double quotes format specification. We don't mention any of the string here, control string. We just only mention the format specification and semicolon, then address of the variable name. So this is a ampersand, which is an address operator, then followed by the variable name and ended with a semicolon. So this is only the syntax of the scanf. So in computer memory, every memory block has its own address. So address nothing but, for example, for each family we have some address. The best example is house number and the area or the location, etc. So similarly for the variables and all, it has some memory block, and that memory block has their own address. So it has some address, so which is generated by the operating system. That address is given by the operating system only. It is not given by the user or anyone else. It is generated automatically by the operating system. So this address is called as logical address. So this is the logical address. To store any data in memory, then user requires the address. So whatever the data we want to store in the memory, the user requires the address. So here the memory, in the memory the variable name, and within this the data will be stored in this, and the down will be given the address. So this is the memory block. So for each memory, for each data it takes some memory. It depends on the data type. So and it has also the address. So in the scanf we use the format specification and ampersand, that is address operator, and followed by the variable. This is the syntax for the scanf. So the example is int a, one variable I declared with the data type int. Now a is equals to 100. Declaration completed, initialization is also completed. Now in a memory block, it will be created as a with the variable name, and this 100 will be stored in the memory block, and some address will be generated by the operating system. So for this a equal to 100, the address which is generated by the operating system is 10,728. So this is the address of the a. Next, write a C program to read two floating point numbers from keyboard, then find out multiplication of given two floating point numbers and display the result. So we have to write a C program. Some two numbers we have to give from the input, means from through the keyboard only we have to give the inputs, and we have to find out the multiplication of those two numbers. Now the numbers which we are giving are of the type floating point numbers, and we have to display the result. So let's do this. Hash include stdio.h. So I am including a header file. Then next I am including the conio.h header file. Then int main. We know that scanf, printf and all these returns an integer value. So compulsorily we have to use the int and open brace. Then float point. Now I am declaring some variables a, b, c. A, B are the inputs. Now two numbers I have to give through the keyboard. So those are of the floating point. So that's why I am declaring with the float data type. And C. So finally the answer will also be come in the floating point number only, because A and B we are using float point numbers. So these three numbers are the float and declaring with the float data type. Ended with semicolon. Next, a clear screen. Then printf. In the printf statement within the double quotes, I want to print enter the values for a and b respectively. So this statement will be printed on the output screen. So by seeing this statement, user has to give the two values. So after this printf, scanf percentile f comma ampersand a comma ampersand b. So in the scanf we use the format specifications only. We don't use any control string. So first percentile f. So we are from the input we are giving the two values. One is for a and one is for b. As they are two input, as we are giving the two inputs from the keyboard, then we have to use the two format specifications. So first percentile f for a and second percentile f for b. So percentile f comma first percentile if is for ampersand a, then comma the second one is for b, that is ampersand b, ended with semicolon. Now these two values, whatever the user give the inputs for the a and b, whatever the values he give, that will be read and that address will be given to the generated by the operating system to the values of a and b. Now after this we have to the main function is, we have to find out the multiplication of the given two floating point numbers. So two floating point numbers we gave from the input, numbers also we gave, then we have to operate it. So the result will be stored in the C. So C is equals to A into B. So in from the input when we are giving, we don't find any into symbol, like that is a cross symbol. So for that, in the place of multiplication we have to use the asterisk. So when you use asterisk, the multiplication will be operated. So A into B, that I want to store in the C. So when we are multiplying two floating point numbers, the result also will be in the floating point number only. So that's why C also I declared as the float. So C is equals to A into B, ended with semicolon. And after this, printf. The multiplication of percentile f and percentile f is percentile f. So first percentile is f for A, second percentile f is for B, and here also we get comma C. So second percentile f for C. Now the get ch written 0. So finally this statement will be printed. So C will be stored, A into B value will be stored in C. So for example, if I want to give any output, First, the statement will be displayed. Enter the values for A and B respectively. So this printf statement will be displayed. Now we have to enter. For example, we are taking the float point numbers. So I am entering it as 2.0, and after giving some space I am giving it as 3.0. So these two values I gave. You can take anything, 2.2 or 3.2, etc., whatever the numbers you want to give. First one is for A and second for is for B. So compulsorily you need to give a space between them. Or you can also, after entering it, also you can give the value for B. Now after giving these values, it goes to the, these values will be read, because we have to read these two values. After using this operation will be operated. That is C is equals to A into B. Now A into B. A into B, that value will be stored in C. So immediately the compiler does this 2.0 into 3.0. Then immediately the statement will be printed. The multiplication of percentile F. First percentile F is for A. So the A value I gave it as 2.0, and second percentile F is for B, that is 3.0, is percentile F. So when we do finally this, we get as 6.0. But for the float point number, it takes up to the 6 decimal points. So 6.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we get 6 zeros. This is the final output. So this statement will be printed, the values will be read, and this operation will be operated. The multiplication of the percentile F and percentile C is percentile F. So finally we get the output as like this. So this is a program on the by using the scanf. Then next we have the getChar. In the getChar, it is a standard input function to read a single character at a time. So whenever we want to read a single character at a time, then we use the getChar. So syntax is getChar, and the example is character x is and character x and ended with semicolon, x is equals to getChar and ended with semicolon. Now let's see one program on this. Write a C program to read and write a single character by using getChar and putChar. So putChar is for printing and getChar is for the displaying, for the input. Header files included stdio.h, conio.h, and input int main. The block of code started. First I am declaring variable x, which is a character with a character data type, character x, ended with semicolon, clear screen, and printf, please enter one character. So from the input we are giving from the keyboard we are giving the character. So we are printing the statement, please enter one character. Now x is equals to getChar and putChar is of x. So ended with semicolon. Now whenever we putChar, this value we will be given to the x, and that will be stored in the value x. Then get ch and return 0. So this x is equals to getChar is for this getChar is for input. Now we have to give the input, and putChar is for the output. So whatever these there, first we have to give the input, then we have to print the output. To give the input we are using getChar. To get the output we are using the putChar. So in the output we get it as please enter one character. So one character we have to enter. I entered A. That will be stored in x variable. Now putChar of x. So in x A will be stored. So this will be printed here. At last we get A. So this is about the getChar and the input output functions. So in the scanf and getChar we discussed. Getas and scanf we will discuss in the upcoming classes. So this is about the standard and input and output functions. So without input and output functions, We cannot write any program because these are very basic, and this all about the input and output functions.